Remember I was telling you that when deals get easy and the adrenaline rush dies down, people start doing stuff like Branson trying to kill himself in balloons and trying to kill himself when he used to race boats. And there's a bunch of guys that did that, myself included. Well, I went through a phase that I was very generous to the Los Angeles Police Department. And the SWAT guys aren't really the tough guys. The bomb squad guys are the tough guys. They're the mean motherfuckers. And so they gave me this. They wouldn't let me go out on a mission with them. They wouldn't let me. One, because some of them still knew my dad. They knew my dad had killed him. Something happened to me. Even though I was an old man by then. So I gave them one of those machines that, you know, those robots that go and de-arm stuff, etc. I gave them one. Expensive, but I gave them one. And I said, I just want you to always remember that I'm with you, even if it's not me. So they gave me this live grenade. This live grenade.
Live?
Want to pull the pin? Okay. They gave me this live grenade. With great difficulties, I got it in this country. Great difficulties. Because you can't even bring a fucking pistol in here, in this country. And it's one of my memorabilia that I have in my office, with a hatchet from the Hatchet Man days that I have over my door. Because deals do become easy eventually. I know it's hard for you to understand that, but if Rob can do a deal, you've done one deal.
Yes.
Okay. And some of you have done other deals, but if Rob, good old boy, from South Carolina, the other USC,
Right.
University of South Carolina, the other USC is University of Southern California, but and he said, and we've talked, and we're going to go through a role play, how you get a chairman, a little later. He knows that you can get a deal done, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And he kind of stumble-fucked it across the line and has put together a quasi-team. But you can do it. It's, you know, it's, as they say in the South, it's not that difficulty, you know, because they can't, you know, their ability to speak, or they speak in a slightly different syntax than we do. How was dinner last night?
Good.
Good. A mini SEAL stayed and tried to build up his little scrawny body in the gym. He was in the gym a long time, which doesn't mean anything. And according to biofuck methodology, biohack, I mean, you only have to work out 3 seconds a day, or 3 seconds 3 times a week, or maybe even only 3 seconds once a month. And you get to be a he-man like Mark here. You know? So, but I think Mini CEO believes the old-fashioned way because he's from Columbia, not South Carolina either. Columbia, the country. So he still thinks that you got to pump iron. Of course, I'm of that generation too. I never believed in the four-hour work week or the 4-hour gym week or the 15-minute a month. I never saw anybody. Of course, Mark may be the first person that I saw that looks like Schwarzenegger that only worked out 15 minutes a month. He may be the first one. I've never met anybody in person, touched him, talked to him, had a drink with him, had a cup of bulletproof coffee with him. By the way, it was 1,200. I was wrong the first day. I don't know if that's good or bad. 1,200 that saw the podcast from me on bulletproof.
It's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm getting still a lot of junk mail or junk spam, and I'm getting more slappers, more sluts trying to face fuck me, and from this exposure that I got. I didn't get too many slappers trying to face fuck me from my London Real exposure, but some of these other exposures, it's like I think I got the clap now, you know. Any questions about anything that we've covered heretofore? Now, it's going to come quickly now. We are in the last half of the 7 steps. I think we're on step 4 now. And so it's like sex, it all comes at the end. And we're gonna do more role plays today and tomorrow. Although the 2 role plays that we've done are, I must admit, are above the curve vis-a-vis the experience and how you delivered, and they were just better. They were better than the average. But some of the people that couldn't even open their mouth have gone out and done big deals. So just the fact that you have good presentation skills, while it is a big benefit, doesn't mean that you're going to get deals done. It doesn't mean you're going to get deals done. It helps. What was the last homework that from? I don't want to do the goals on TV here, but other than goals and affirmations, is there anything that we haven't covered that we did at night that I give you for homework?
No, we're good.
Okay, we're caught up. Okay, and we will do the goals and affirmations when we get off television.
Dan, we have a bit of an announcement to make.
Who's got to make?
Well, we were out last night networking. You know, swapping spit
Oh, Jesus Christ!
and helping each other on how to do deals. And we formed a group. Yeah.
What are you, unionizing now?
And we got a group on Facebook, Linkfuck, and we're called the Dan Peña Big Hitters! Class of 2014.
Good, good. But some of you came home early last night, because just as I was going up to my room to say my affirmations before I went to bed, you came back. And I don't know if you came back by yourself? They throw you out, or?
3 others. No.
Oh, okay. Is there any meaning for that, of that?
They
Because,
threw us out.
okay. He used to say they throwed us out. See, look at how good, look at it. Gumfuck, there's possibility. I mean, you know?
You got quite good.
You know what I was gonna do? You know that picture of the monkey on the computer? Remember that on the first day? I was gonna put him. Not the standing computer. You know, the Homo sapien stands up now, and I'm not sure if the Austrians that swing from the trees are Homo sapien yet, or if they're still back in
We
the.
came from the caves.
Oh, they're from the caves. They're from the caves. And seriously, I've heard people, you know, other people from Austria talk about that area as, shall we say, and the nicest word I can think of is primitive. Primitive. And of course,
You must have been in Vienna.
that's exactly where I was. Because when Patrick had the guide Sally and I around Vienna on that tour, and he's a very prim and proper, well-educated guy, as is Patrick. He said that we told him where we had just been, and he kind of looked up his nose, and out of the same sentence we were talking about the Viennese walls, and it's quite primitive there. They probably don't know anything about the Viennese walls, and then 3 or 4 other things. And but if we can teach a Homo sapien that's not much different than the monkey that was doing stuff on that laptop in one of the first slides in the first day, I mean, anybody, and if Rob from Good Old Boy, and when we went in our private meeting yesterday, we related back and forth, and he said, you know, I know this is doable because I did it, you know, and a few of you have done deals, not necessarily the way you're going to learn, or you've learned to do deals, but most people that come here that have done transactions have done it either the B school way, which is from the case studies when they got their MBA, or trial and error. Trial and error. And I'll take a trial and error guy every time over a freshly minted MBA guy, no matter where they went to school. And the other differentiation for the people in this room, for the most part, the deals that you've done, to the extent that you've done transactions, have been with your own money. And there's a quantum fucking difference from using your own money than advising somebody else how to use their money. Big difference. And until you've lost your own money, and made your own money, and until you've had accountants overbill you or want to bill you for mistakes, et cetera, I mean, you haven't really lived. It's like I said in the beginning, one of the things they talked about at the biohacking conference, at least the SENA did, was if you haven't pissed blood and run 100 miles, you're a cunt. Well, I've done both. I have pissed blood and I have run 100 miles. But if you haven't, been fucked by your accountant and et cetera, in these transactions, you haven't really learned anything. And again, that's what the whole concept of the Dream Team's about. Because like my Dream Team that I have the picture of up there, they, those old guys would, have been screwed every way, left, right, and center. And as I say, I think we have 3 million pores in our bodies, and I've been fucked in every one of them at least twice. So, and as they say, and not in a good way. So that's part of the Dream Team, the benefit of the Dream Team, because they have that scar tissue, they have that cynicism. But point about that, because we've been talking about Dream Team. You don't want people on your Dream Team that are so fucking cynical and so pessimistic that you can't get deals done. And I've seen some of the guys, and that guy that I told you about before, the Canadian that ultimately threw his chairman out, that was a cross of cynicism, and they wanted to just use the QLA graduate as a gopher. Now, you're going to have a lot of energy, a lot more energy than virtually everybody you bring on the Dream Team, except for in my case. You don't have more energy than I do. But with me as an exception, you're going to have a lot more energy. And that's one, what sucks them into the vortex, because you're going to remind them, hopefully, of them when they were young. And it's tough to find somebody in his late 50s, 60s, or 70s that still has a lot of energy. Again, I'm the exception to that. But you don't want them for their energy, again, remember. You want them, and you don't want them for their money. You want them because they're willing to give you time. And if they're not willing to give you time, then you got to move on and find out somebody else, find someone else. But the cynicism does, you occasionally find somebody that I coulda, I shoulda, I woulda, although they're pretty successful. If they had done 2 or 3 other things, they would have been, billionaires, or they would have been, people of distinction. And they have a sourness about them. And sometimes you don't get that in the first meeting, the second meeting. But don't be afraid when you've met with them and they're on the board to exit them. And for young guys like you to exit somebody 65 years old is not easy. It's just not easy, okay? And that's the biggest challenge that the Canadian guy had. It's not easy for a Canadian to exit anybody anyway. But I mean, when you've got some guy, and a rich guy, he's a wealthy guy, a successful guy.
You probably told him, "I'm sorry for letting you go," about 100 times.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and I've never told anybody I'm sorry for letting you go. If I say anything, I say, don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. And I should have done this earlier. But in my case, I normally I terminate relationships quicker than most. Not mentee relationships. I've never given up on a mentee. But I mean, in business relationships, because I know if I can see the edge of a red flag popping up, I know that's just the tip of the iceberg. I know what's coming, and I realize, time is the most important commodity, not just for me, but for the collective Dream Team, because it takes time to do these transactions, and that's why it's so hard for you to cut loose when they go sideways.
Is that a reason not to have a friend doing it, or?
Well, yeah, that's a big reason, but I don't believe in doing business with friends or family. I'll tell the story. I haven't had any friends on these transactions, because you can't make I can, but you can't normally make a rational decision to pull the trigger. You just, and so just multiply that by 100 if it's your brother, your sister, your mother, your father. Marcus. Marcus is going to hold a little class at lunch talking about being in business with relatives. We don't want to bore the you fuckers here, YouTubers. And it's, you know, it's not impossible, but it's tough. And like I've said, I've only seen one husband and wife team be successful in all my years in business, and they're up on that board. The Verdiers, Deanne and George Verdier. The chemistry works. She was a kindergarten teacher. He was an engineer, out of work engineer. And she was a kindergarten teacher. She came up with this idea. It's a little fuzzy who came up with the idea, but I think Deanne came up with the idea. And they started this business, and 30 years later, it's still, I think, the biggest in the United States in it. And he put in the systems, the procedures, just like an engineer, and tarted it up and made it, and helped the process. But other than that husband and wife team, I don't know any. I've heard about them. I've read about a couple, but when I go to try to touch them, feel them, and meet them, and then when a few, like Richard Rainwater and his wife, what's her name?
Darla Moore.
Yeah, one of the only successful people to come out of the other USC. The way they've divided up their responsibilities, they're really not in business together. So, even though they're considered a successful billionaire husband and wife team, but they're not really doing the same thing. So when you check that this husband and wife really get to do it well, when you get down to the short strokes, pun intended, you get down to the short strokes, they're not. They're in two different businesses. I've seen that happen a bunch of times. And then the husband and or the wife give each other, some advice, sometimes not wanted, but they give each other advice, and it works out well. But as far as, CEO, co-CEOs and all that shit, and if you know any, let me know. I'd like to, before I die, in the next 60, 70 years, I'd like to meet them. I'd like to touch them. I'd like to buy them a dinner at the Ritz, and but I don't think that you'll be introducing me to any. Or if you do introduce me to somebody, and I drill down and I find out they're really not in the same business, and they just pretend to be. But it's tough with relatives. It's extremely, and some people. I tell the story many years ago. A guy had a stepson and a son. He had two businesses. The stepson and the son were running the businesses, and it was clear that one of those two had to go. He couldn't do it. I saw him 10 years later at a birthday party, and ultimately he had to close the business down. A lot of people would rather close the business down and go bankrupt than fire their brother or sister or their mother. Mary Kay Cosmetics is one of my favorite stories. Mary Kay, I don't know if she's still alive. I think she's still alive. She must be in her 80s now. She's the one that they drive the pink Cadillacs, and they sell the cosmetics door to door. I don't know if it's outside the United States, but I know it's big in the United States. And back in the 70s, or I guess the early 80s, mid 80s, she turned the company over to her son to be CEO. And then ultimately, 10 or 15 years later, she came to the sad realization that he wasn't doing the job, in her judgment, so she threw him out. And a big dogfight ensued, and they had a big legal battle. And there's no worse ugliness. It's a mother and a son, or a son and a father get in a legal battle over these big assets. All of a sudden, the cordiality that they conveyed to their dad or their son goes out the window, and it becomes, like a dogfight extraordinaire. And so she took control back of the company, and I'm not sure, I haven't checked recently. She's still in control. But normally, when you exit a friend or a brother or a sister or a dad or a mom, it takes you a lot longer to make a decision. a lot longer, and normally in that lot longer time, the business goes like this. And then you always wonder, because in the back of your mind, well, are we still gonna be mates? Are we still gonna be friends? Are we still gonna go to the pub together? And 99 times out of 100, the answer is no. No. Because no matter how bad the person fucked the deal up, they will blame you. Doesn't matter. They didn't produce, they didn't make any revenue, they didn't make any sales, they didn't grow the business, you. Okay, well, I'm glad to see that we have big fucking hitters 2014. I don't want to tell the big hitter story because it sounds racist. I don't want it to be on YouTube. But it's big fucking hitter by YouTubers.